Each game starts on a ship. Now, if you're aboard a ship, it usually means you're setting sail into the ocean. The games progress thematically in this direction. Donkey Kong Country is all set on firm land, an island. Donkey Kong Country 2 is also on an island, but it's set in a world of pirates, the kind of people who avoid staying on land for too long, so the theme of sailing is more present than in the first game. Finally, Donkey Kong Country 3 is all about water and navigating that water. The box arts show this progression, especially with Dixie, who points the way towards the water and then fully submerges us in the water at the end. So far in this analysis, several of these three-part progressions have appeared, so I'd like to reflect on them for a second. First, the games show a transition towards the liberation of Queen Banana Bird. The first game seems fairly down to earth. Then, Donkey Kong Country 2 introduces the theme of spirituality by including ghosts, as well as a potential Hades or hell in the form of the Lost World. Then, Donkey Kong Country 3 is the epitome of spirituality since the goddess herself is liberated. The second reading is that of Diddy escaping the barrel. Again, Donkey Kong Country 3 serves as an epitome of self-awareness when he is liberated from the barrel. Now, these two analyses have quite a lot in common. Things are being liberated, and this liberation involves a sort of enlightenment, an ascent up to heaven, a greater awareness, etc. The northern hemisphere is north of everything else. It is closer to the sky than to the earth, and is, as I said at the start of this video, the epitome of water-themed worlds in this series. We are surrounded by lakes, rivers, waterfalls, and so on. This leads me to suggest that this theme of sailing away towards the ocean resonates with the previous two themes. Water, then, symbolizes spirit in some way, as it does in many world mythologies. So, a point in common between all three games, all three themes, is the concept of time. Queen Banana Bird is trapped by a sundial reminiscent of a clock. Diddy, according to this theory, is descending into the past in order to remember, so he's travelling in time. In this case, if water symbolized spirit, it would also represent eternity, timelessness. A movement from the constraints of linear time towards the boundless ocean of eternity, so to speak. This eternity is furthermore related to the underworld, to the land of the unconscious which Diddy is entering. In a similar way, our relationship as players of the game could be that we're entering a land of images, music, stories. The game is an artistic expression which springs from the unconscious. The deeper into the game we go, the deeper into the unconscious. Which might be why Crazy Kremland is at the center of the mandala, because it's the only point of contact between our world and the game world, the only place in common between both. From there onwards, it's an excursion into the poetic and the unknown. Crazy Kremland is pure material pleasure, games, attractions, but it is conjoined with spirit since it's haunted, riddled with ghosts. It makes sense that this would be the only area where Swanky has a visible tent set up. He is a fitting symbol for the Kremland as a whole. He is a lover of wealth and games, after all. He also dresses in the fashion of disco, the music which blasts through the amusement park. The only other Kong with a tent is Cranky, the other lover of material enjoyment. This pair of characters is not incidental. They team up again in Donkey Kong Country 3 to set up a sideshow. As a pair, they sort of correspond to Cruncher and Cannon. Cruncher's statue is placed above Cranky's museum, as his beheaded face is, and Cannon is above Swanky. Now, Swanky appears inside a barrel in Donkey Kong Country 3, the only Kong who is pictured this way. He deals treasure, gold. There is gold inside the barrel, energy, libido. He is the host of the game. In order to play the game, one must go through him. He is the guardian at the entrance, the golden barrel. It's interesting to see then how the barrel as a symbol in the Donkey Kong Country universe is very often associated to the star, which is Diddy's emblem. Star barrels save your game, stars decorate barrel cabins, etc. Stars are fire, explosions of energy. The barrels are usually also cannons. They have an inherent explosive quality that can shoot you to another world. There is a star inside the barrel. We could say then that Cannon, who is responsible for kicking Diddy into the barrel, is representative of the barrel as symbol. In fact, he holds a barrel of sorts in his hands. In the Kremlin crew photo, Clobber, the man in the barrel, is on the absolute foreground. One would think King K. Rool should take the front spot, but Clobber and Clampon are like his visual representatives, the dual nature of his psyche. On the one hand, Clobber seems to be the unconscious. Him, K. Rool, Clubber, and Cackle form a quartet, who are all wounded in one of their eyes. Clobber even has a bandage on his face. The top part of his body, his head, is weak, but the lower part is solid. On the other hand, Clampon is practically only a head. His body is insignificant in comparison. It's the head, the brain, the conscious mind. Claptrap, as the fake Donkey Kong Country credits say, is responsible for the code that runs the game. Clampon is the ego, the head controlling the wild, frenzied, libidinal energy of the unconscious that is Clobber. Clobber stands at the front and represents the Kremlin crew. 12 Kremlings, like the 12 Olympians, or a mythological representation of the 12 hours on a clock, the 12 months in a year, etc. The Wheel of Time. Both Clampon and Cruncher are stylized in red and blue, and Cruncher's head is intact, whereas his body is gone. He is consciousness. In Donkey Kong Country 64, Clampon is the driver behind the wheel, navigating King K. Rool himself, who takes the form of a ship, a vessel. Here, the king is controlled by two elements, Clampon and Clobber, a Kremling inside a wooden wheel, and the wheel itself. Both Clobber and Cannon hold a barrel, and Cannon's hat depicts a skull. Their heads are dead. Clobber, as the unconscious force, is the pure, unending wheel. Cannon, in the same role, is also depicted next to the wheel on the ship. Clampon and Cruncher are the conscious mind of language, applying meaning and direction to this directionless wheel. Cannon is even seen standing next to the Ferris wheel in Crazy Kremland, the same wheel which Diddy stands in front of, a character known for his wheelbarrow attack. Diddy is directionless. It is actually Dixie who guides him and gives him direction. The Kremlin crew are 12, the 12 months of the year. They even arrive at 12 o'clock. In Donkey Kong Country 3, the brothers Bear are 13. Benny and Bjorn are twins, however, and they both represent Razor Ridge, whereas all other areas feature only one bear. So we could read them as being 12 bears, too. On the other hand, Donkey Kong Country 3 is one step ahead of Donkey Kong Country 2. In mythological terms, if the group of 12 people represents the 12 months and earthly time, the 13th member would be, therefore, the transcendence of earthly time. In my Donkey Kong Country 3 video series, I related this transcendence with the emergence of Kramatoa, introducing the hidden bear, Boomer, the 13th bear, so to speak, born from the depths. He is on the very front of this group photo as the leader of it. The most distant bear here is Blue Bear, whose birthday I theorized as being the 13th of January, and therefore indicating that the number 13 represented the birth of something. Clobber is the only character in this game who overtly represents TNT explosives, just like Boomer. The explosive volcano whose crater is at the center of the circle, the fire at the core of the wheel of time. Funnily enough, in Donkey Kong Country 3, there are also two bears that appear next to K. Rool, Boomer and Baffle. Baffle is also in charge of code, the brains behind the operation.